This is a video on how to change a W221 S550 4matic air filter. This should work on all W221 V8s. And so here's what you'll need for the job. You're going to need a flathead screwdriver, your air filter, that's SA7620. For STP you'll need 2 of these for the V8, and a T20 security sprocket, as well as to clean your mass airflow sensor. You're going to need the CRC mass airflow sensor. What you do is you lift off the front part of the engine cover. Go ahead and put that off to the side. As you move on through, there will be a clamp on the back, and you release that. From there, you see these 2 intake hoses. They go from there where the air comes in through the grill. We're going to work to detach that one. And work to detach that one, and then you pull off this oil relief clamp, and then from there the air filter housing is inside this top part of the engine cover. And so if you flip it over, you're going to see, so you'll need a T20 star to pull it off, and we'll go ahead and unscrew here, here, down here, and here, and the same on both sides. And so after you screw all of them, you'll notice that you don't have to pull them all the way out, just enough to get it detached from the top part of the cover. And so after we do all those screw points, you simply just pull it off, and there's your filter. And you simply pull it off, and as you can see, mine is pretty filthy. And brand new filter. And maybe before we do that, we'll go ahead and just shake this residue out. And then we'll insert the brand new one in. So from there, we'll go ahead and place that back into its place, and then we'll rescrew it. And so we'll screw those all into place, and make sure that you screw them snugly, but not too tightly, because after all, this is plastic. And what a pain that would be to crack this plastic, and have to pay a few $100s to replace it. And then we'll go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. So since we went ahead and replaced the air filters in the housing, we'll go ahead and do something else that most mechanics often look to do that many of us overlook, and that is clean this thing in the back right here called a mass airflow sensor. So we're going to pull that little housing out and clean it, shoot it off with some of this mass airflow sensor cleaner. So the things to look for when pulling this out is, first off, it is held by plastic bracket housing right here and right there, and here's electronic plug right there that goes to the sensor. So if you look down closely, you'll see this little gray tab right here. I suggest that you take a flathead and you gently pry that off, because that's what's locking it in place. And after gently prying it, be careful, it's plastic, pull it off, and now it's unplugged, and then from there, you can work on gently removing it from this housing. So you gently pull it from this housing, you pull these pieces out that release from this metal bracket. Make sure you do both sides so that they get unhinged. See, it's loose, and then from there you gently pull up, and you'll see that there's one retaining bracket right here. You'll push that down, and you'll go ahead and lift up. And so now that we've gotten the housing off, make sure to wipe that little area for debris. Make sure to use a lint-free cloth. Don't want any lint getting trapped in there. And so we're going to see that right there, that little thing that's sticking right there is the mass airflow sensor. So I'm going to go ahead and reuse my old air filter. I'm going to put it right here. So whatever we do spray the cleaner on this, no runoff gets onto the ground or on the grass. We don't want to contaminate anything. I'm going to go ahead and grab our spray. And go ahead and look closely at those instructions. Be careful not to use this like it says right there. Don't use this on any Karman Vortex airflow sensor. It's typically ones found like on Toyota Supra Turbos, Mitsubishis, and most Lexus vehicles. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and shake this. Make sure it's really well shaken. I'm going to go and spray that down a bit. Go ahead and turn this around. Spray that here, and this would help with some rough idle issues that tends to happen as cars get a little on their years, and it's really just best to try to do these small preventative measures. You know, most people are intimidated by a vehicle that technically with MSRP was $100,000, but if you actually go past that stereotype, you realize that these cars in many ways share a lot of similarities with your Toyotas, your Jeeps, you know, all those average vehicles. And if you yourself can learn to maintain them, not only can you ensure that this car doesn't end up costing you a lot down the road, but the intimidation factor will wear off and it'll be far more economically feasible to own. Okay. Now once that you've ensured that this is completely dry and free from debris, you just wipe it off, make sure you don't get any lint caught up on it. You're going to go ahead and reinstall it the way we disassembled it. So if you look on top, you're going to see that it has an arrow pointing as to which way the airflow goes. You want to make sure that arrow is pointing towards the way of the engine. So the arrow was pointing down when we found it as we were disassembling it. So let's go ahead and reinstall in the same manner. So we'll go ahead and gently put that back in place. And there you go. That's back in place now. We'll go ahead and re-snap that back onto that bracket right there. Gently, we'll go ahead and push that wire back right on in that little harness, and you hear that click. Make sure everything is nice and snug. And there you go. And then we'll go ahead and carry on and reinstall the air filter housing. So let's go ahead and pick up our air filter housing. You can see right there. We're going to go ahead and reinstall it right on top of the engine. So I'm going to make sure everything lines up perfectly, as you can. You want to make sure that this hole right here lines up with that mass airflow sensor housing. So make sure everything snugly fits in place, and then we'll continue from there. And so we want to make sure to pat it down and make sure our housing is secure back in place. Go ahead and take this retaining clip. We're going to snap that right back on. See, that snaps perfectly. Then from there, the tricky part is to make sure to secure this hose back on. Make sure you want to clean around it and make sure that is definitely snug. And then reconnect the air intakes on both sides from here and here in the intake to the air housing. And again, so final recap. To make sure the air housing is secure, you're going to make sure to pat it down, make sure it's locked in place, reconnect that little metal bracket, little harness, and then gently but firmly, it sounds a bit opposite, you're going to make sure these air intakes are reconnected to the housing. So right here, You're gonna make sure it's snug, but don't manhandle it too much because it is plastic, and yet again, it's Mercedes, and if you break a plastic part, you're paying out the bottom for a new plastic piece. And you're gonna make sure it's connected right here, here, both sides, as well as that. The hole on the bottom of the housing is perfectly snug on top of the mass airflow sensor housing. And after that, go ahead and take this top piece. We'll go ahead and make sure it's snugly back in place. You'll make sure that this bracket on both sides re-adheres to the holes set forth there. And there you go. You've just replaced your air filters for your S550.